welcome back to another Voices in Rewilding series. So the first question we're going to ask is just tell me a bit about yourself.
So my name is Ghazaleh. I am third-year PhD student in the Department of Geography in University of Exeter, and I'm looking into the effects of large wood in river restoration. So my work is mostly fieldwork based, and at the moment I'm monitoring 4 sites around Devon, Dorset and Somerset. And I'm mostly looking into hydromorphological effects of these large woods, so in terms of hydrology, hydraulics, and geomorphology.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting, yeah. So how do you see river restoration contributing to long-term climate resilience?
So I have to say, it can play an important role, but of course, the success of these efforts really depend on a good monitoring and understanding what works, what doesn't work, learning from the previous restoration projects. But I have to say, when the restoration is done very well and supported by strong evidence, it has the potential to bring out the significant benefits.
Yeah. So can nature-based solutions ever fully replace the traditional flood defence, such as flood embankments and dams?
So my work mainly focuses on the nature-based solution and the restoration. So I don't have extensive expertise in the traditional flood defense. But however, from my perspective, the nature-based solutions and their effectiveness really depends on how well they're designed and implemented to make them reliable at a larger scale. I think we needed really clear guidance, a detailed guidance, such as a cohort manual and design frameworks to ensure these restoration approaches are planned and delivered properly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what role do you think the landowners should play in managing flood risk, and how do you think they can help mitigate it?
So I can't speak broadly about that, but I can give you an example about this. So one of the sites that I'm monitoring, and it's owned by a landowner. He has carried out the large wood restoration himself. And after 2 years now, he's really seeing the effects and the benefits in terms of habitat creations, increase in fish population. He's seeing all those effects coming, and he is now witnessing some flood delays in his land. And also he has encouraged the neighbor landowners to do the restoration work as well. So I think examples like this show that landowners can play a really important role. And when they are engaged and when they're willing to implement the restoration measures in their land, they can directly contribute to managing flood risk.
So do you know what sort of management he put in place to sort of help prevent flood risk?
So the thing that he placed in, so he first went with brushwood restoration. So he put some brushwood in the riverbed, and then he put some leaky dams. So the first attempt of his was washed away by flood, and in the next attempt, because he learned his lesson from the previous ones, and then he tried to pin them, and then again he went with different large wood structures. Like he had full spam log, step log, he had brushwoods, he even used some rocks to kind of create the hydraulic complexity. So at the moment, even after the big floods that he is witnessing, all of his interventions are in place. So he's seeing some results from there.
So it definitely seems like you're sort of learning from what works, what doesn't work, and then bringing it all together and sort of create something that's effective.
Yes, that's the approach he went with.
So from your experience, or mainly from your studies, what type of nature-based approach tends to work well, and why would you say that particular one?
So from the work that I'm mainly focused, because it's large wood focused, what I do, I think their success really depends on how they're designed and how they match to characteristics of the river itself. So factors like volume of wood compared to the stream power of the river, these are really important because the design needs to be adapted with the specific characteristic of that river itself. For example, in some places, we have seen that full spam leaky dams are really appropriate. Whereas in some sites, I've seen that even a half a span or even like a small island in between is really good. And obviously, we have these really good examples of stage zeros. For example, Holnicott is like a best example, or Tatscom in North Devon are the best examples to give about this. So I think it's not a one size fits all solution. It really depends on different parameters.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So how would you decide whether a natural flood management or rewilding project has been successful, and what monitoring do you put in place for this?
So if I have to again speak for myself, I think it depends on several indicators. I think when we are trying to assess them, if we define a couple of indicators and we try to see how we can monitor them. For example, for my work, I'm trying to see the increase in hydrate complexity, the habitat creation, or changes in geomorphology. So, for example, to get the hydraulic complexity, I'm getting the velocity maps around these large wood interventions, or to monitor habitat creation and geomorphic changes. So far, I've seen that drone surveys that are being done seasonally, repeatedly each year, they are really helpful because by doing drone surveys, you can compare the changes in geomorphology. Also, you can assess it based on the improvement in biodiversity, like fish population, or improvement in water quality. We have another PhD. He's looking into water quality side of the story. So he's putting in situ sounds before and after interventions to see how they are impacting the water quality. In terms of flood delay, what I'm using in situ trolls, which are sensors basically. They are measuring flow velocity and depths and even the discharge. So by doing that, I can easily say, okay, how much the flood is being delayed. But also, I think having a really good structure really matters. So for a good monitoring, I think the ideal one is the back key monitoring, which is before after control impact monitoring, but it's often really limited. And you're really limited when it comes to monitoring on what you can or can't do, because normally you go to a site and you see that have their interventions in place and you don't have a before data to compare. So yeah, maybe before and after monitoring or control and impact monitoring approach are really, really effective to compare the conditions and understand the real effects of restoration work.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think is the biggest barrier from stopping people using nature-based solutions a bit more commonly?
I think the biggest barrier so far is a really lack of really clear, detailed guidance on how to implement these solutions, how much is needed, where it should be implemented, and stuff like this. A really detailed guidelines specifically for nature-based solution is really helpful. But I think the other barrier can be funding. I've seen it from the landowners; they're finding it really challenging, because often the funding is not too much to fund them for a long time monitoring and maintenance of these nature-based solutions. So it's not easy to secure always. But also I've noticed that engagement with landowners is also a barrier because, well, some of these sites are on private lands, and it's really crucial to work closely with landowners, encourage them, involve them, how to reach out to them, how to change your result in a clear way, engaging way, just to demonstrate the results and show the real impacts to them is also challenging, I guess.
Yeah, so I think that could link back to how landowners could help is by if we, give them a bit more guidance and potentially help with budget as well, then this could be something that people use a bit more commonly, like you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen that most of the landowners, most of the farmers, I've been in one meeting with the farmers, and I've noticed that whenever they were telling stuff about restoration, they were like, no, I don't want any big thing in my land. But whenever they were reaching out to the farmers saying that, okay, you've got bank erosion in this area, we can help you with that, we can help you to mitigate that. And in that time, they were like, okay, yeah, I want the restoration. So it's just the way of approaching them, a way of kind of trying to tell what's going to happen. But I think they also want to know what exactly is going to happen after restoration in their lands. Kind of like maybe modeling can help with that,
Yeah.
to kind of like show a longer term effects of what restoration is going to impact their lands. Also, it's really helpful.
Yeah, so potentially a bit cautious because they're not too sure, how it could play out and how it might affect their land.
Yeah.
So what additional benefits do you normally see alongside flood risk reduction?
I think the most important is habitat creation, which often led to the increase in biodiversity. But also you can see the improving water quality, allowing sediments and nutrients to settle, creation of pools, sorting sediments.
Yeah, so there's lots of benefits sort of
Yeah.
besides from the flood risk, you can also bring in, wildlife habitats, all that, which of course is always good. Always good to
Yes.
bring in. So what are the main limitations you would say to use in natural flood management?
Well, I wouldn't know about the main, if I again speak on the behalf of leaky dams, I would say their maintenance maybe is a main limitation.
Yeah.
Because often after like big floods, we have seen that some of the leaky dams are being washed away. So to have a program in mind to maintain them and like to supply wood again, it's really challenging. And again, that also needs another monitoring because you need someone to monitor them to see like whether they have been washed away or whether they stay in place. Do we need to pin them or not? That's the only limitation that comes to my mind, apart from the limitations of their implementations.
Of course, yeah. So again, it might be something that puts people off because it's not a case of
Yeah.
installing it and leaving it. There's constant monitoring, which costs money or time, and yeah, that again might put people off.
Yes. Yes.
So how would you balance flood risk reduction with biodiversity and habitat restoration goals?
I think they go hand in hand rather than comparing with each other. So from what I've observed, these nature-based intervention can deliver both outcomes at the same time. So for example, one of the sites, the main idea was to raise the bed and to have like a floodplain reconnection. But then from the data I've gathered, I noticed that it is also causing flood delay. It is also causing habitat creation. So I think once you install them, all the effects they come together. It just depends which you want more, and what's your aim of restoration.
Yeah, so maybe not one or the other. They come together a lot of the times. Like you're saying, the benefits could be creating the habitats.
Yes, yes. So for example, for stage 0 sites, because the main aim for stage 0 sites is floodplain reconnection, right? But from what we have seen that the discharge rate in upstream and downstream are really different. We have seen a really good flood delay because of those interventions, because they can also slow down the flow. They imagine that they are like an obstacle. So they will slow down the flow. They will hold water back in the land and release them slowly.
So, based off your experience you got so far, what would be a piece of advice you give to someone trying to start out in the industry?
So that one I wouldn't know about it because I'm mainly focused in academia. But if I'm giving advice to industry, I would say maybe try to link some of the results from academic people to industry and trying to kind of find a way of communicating those results with other people, such as landowners, would be really good, something good to have. Yeah, other than that, I don't have any reason because
So it could
I
be a
don't
case
have
of
any
sort of,
experience.
yeah, of course,
Yes.
it could be like opening up communication, and if everyone works together, you can bring data together and the practical side together, and it could help with the process.
Yeah.
Brilliant.